What's up, everybody? Hey, Tom Laird here, host of the Advice from a Call Center Geek podcast and founder of Expivia. For exceptional contact center outsourcing, trust Expivia. We're fully AI-driven, as all of you know, and can handle voice, email, chat, and all of your digital channels. Our 600-seat USA contact center is expert in healthcare, financial services, insurance, tech support, retail, and more. Experts on the NICE CX1 platform, we ensure seamless customer experiences. DM me or visit expiviausa.com for more.
This is Advice from a Call Center Geek, a weekly podcast with a focus on all things call center. We'll cover it all from call center operations, hiring, culture, technology, and education. We're here to give you actionable items to improve the quality of yours and your customers' experience. This is an evolving industry with creative minds and ambitious people like this guy. Not only is his passion call center operations, but he's our host. He's the CEO of Expivia Interaction Marketing Group and the Call Center Geek himself, Tom Laird.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Advice from a Call Center Geek, the call center contact center podcast. We try to give you some actionable items, take back in your contact center, improve the overall quality, improve the agent experience. Hopefully we can improve the customer experience as well. I hope everybody's doing great. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Tom Laird. I am the CEO of Expivia Interaction Marketing. We're a multiple 100-seat contact center located here in Erie, Pennsylvania. Deal with lots of different customers, from retail to basic customer support, financial services, kind of you name it. We have customers that we're servicing. Also, as you guys probably know by now, I'm the CEO and founder of Auto QA, where we are fully scoring contact center quality calls and interactions using AI. All right. So again, I've been trying to really walk a fine line with the podcast when it comes to kind of the technology side versus the kind of the core contact center side, because we have to remember most of us are still not using, full agent-based AI, right? Most of us still have the contact center agents. And again, a lot of the time we're forgetting about them, right? We're moving on to these cool, fun technology kind of projects. And when we realize that who's really actually still talking to our customers, it's the agents, and we're forgetting about them, right? So this is kind of a bridge episode. And I did one of these before when my new book came out, False Hustle, which really talked about all the things that we've learned from doing auto QA, seeing customers' forms, seeing how we could help them improve the form, and really what were some of the mistakes that we saw. And so I want to kind of dig even a little bit deeper into that today, talk about some of the things that I see as an issue kind of industry-wide when it comes to QA, how I think, platforms, and it doesn't have to be OTTO QA, our platform, but lots of different AI-based quality tools, and how they can help and how I've seen them make a lot of difference, when it comes to contact centers, and, not only from saving them money, but also from kind of the quality aspect of how we can look at different insights, I guess, right? So, kind of just to dig into this, but, have you ever really looked at maybe one of your agent scores, or maybe you're an agent, right? And, you're scoring, 95, 96%, but you still have issues, right? We still maybe our CSAT, our NPS, maybe just the overall, I don't know, there's just a vibe with that agent, right? Or with you, or with what you're coaching. Like, they don't sound great. We're not getting a great reaction from the customer, right, when we talk to them, but still on our form, they're scoring out of this world. So we're put in a real predicament, right? As a manager, or as a supervisor, or a team lead, right? When you go up to try to coach that agent, right? A lot of times they'll just be like, what do you mean? I'm at 96%. I'm killing it. Right. And there's a disconnect that I think happens a lot of times with the forms that we're utilizing, what people think are important. And some of the times they are really important, right? But, making sure that we kind of bridge that fine line between agent behavior, compliance, analytics, right? We have all of these things that people are telling us we need to have. And let's kind of just take a step back and really kind of look at some of these things. So again, let's look at, a couple things in this episode, right? The gap between kind of that traditional QA, what we're looking to score, what's maybe the C level, what they think is important compared to a call center manager, compared to an agent, right? How do we do effective coaching with those? How do we move beyond just compliance scoring and focus on actual agent development? How can some of these AI powered tools, how can they transform coaching? How can they transform maybe some of the customer experience protocols that we're kind of trying to learn through? And again, looking at more micro coaching, right? I think, a lot of times we'll do, we'll sit down with an agent, maybe go over a couple calls, have the kind of this big session with them. But I think, I want to talk through kind of the micro coaching, especially if we're using certain platforms where we could get more data, right? And I want to kind of work that through. All right. So, at the end of the day, right, to kind of really dig into kind of this first segment here, QA is about performing or improving agent performance, right? It's improving the agent performance. Why? So that we can improve the customer experience as well. But again, why do so many agents really with high QA scores, we still struggle with CSAT, with objective handling, first call resolution, right? And the reason is most QA forms are not focused on the right stuff, right? Most of them are focused on compliance and making sure that we don't get sued, right? Which is still a really, really important thing, right? But we have to kind of talk through some of these things where, I called it false hustle, right? And that's kind of the book that I wrote, where we talked about things that, we think are important, but really it has no impact on the customer experience. It has no impact on first call resolution, but it's a compliance issue, or maybe it's just something that kind of makes us, we can't put our hand around really how to score something. So we give the agent a sentence, we give them a phrase, we tell them to say something. Again, you guys have heard me talk about empathy, right? Every single person that we see when we get an auto QA customer, they have a question. Did the agent show empathy, or did the agent use an empathetic statement, which I hate, right? And most of the time we're just checkboxing it. Did the agent say something like, "I'm really sorry to hear that"? No matter what the tone was, if they did it, we check it and we're happy about it, right? Again, we're looking at things like, did the agent follow the script? Did they use the company's name twice, right? Did they, they're trying to check these boxes on a QA form, because when we were manually scoring, and most of you still are manually scoring, we didn't know how to do certain things, right? How do you score engagement, right? Well, we came up with these things like using the customer's name 3 times in the first 2 minutes, right? All of these kind of, I don't want to say silly things, but ways that we had to use as human beings, right? Who can't listen. We're not programmed to listen to call after call after call, especially if you have 10, 15-minute calls, and really dig deep into the entire call and think through what happened at the beginning, middle, and end. But when you're at the end, what happened at the beginning? What did they say? Could that affect a question at the end, right? And that's why I think the manual scoring process is really the kind of the low-hanging fruit for where AI is coming in, right? Because we can now look at entire calls. We can look at them in multiple ways. We can dig deeper. We can educate our agents, at a different level, right? And I think, when we can move from just scoring calls and giving scores based on these checklists to finding out that kind of the two things that we like to say, right? The intent of the agent and the outcome of the question, or the outcome of that interaction with the customer. Those are the two important things. Not if we use the company's name 2 times and we used it once in the greeting, and then we use the agent's or the customer's name 3 times, and we followed the script. But did all of that lead to a better outcome? And I think we're starting to be able to see that, and we'll be able to, quote unquote, score behaviors at a much deeper level, because AI can actually think. And, instead of taking that, one call from Timmy or Susie and scoring that and then kind of talking to them about it, now we can take 100 calls or 50 calls from them. And we can start to look at patterns, right? We're not just looking at, did they screw something up one time? And again, with these kind of auto QA platforms, everybody asks me, Tom, will they improve, our CSAT or our NPS? I get that question all the time. And my answer is no, if you're using a garbage form, right? If your form isn't great, you're still scoring bad behaviors, or you're scoring things that don't make an impact. You're just scoring more of it, right? And I think we need to start to look at now the questions that we're asking from an agent standpoint. Again, you guys have heard me say this a million times, but I think it's just the greatest example, right? Instead of saying, for engagement, did the agent use the customer's name 3 times in the first 2 minutes, right? We can actually ask, hey, did they have a voice or a tone that actually grabbed the customer, right? Maybe raised or lowered sentiment, right? Raised or lowered the tone of the customer, right? Did they use just words that were enthusiastic? Did they use a tone? Did they, again, looking at kind of the actual behavior of the agent, not just looking at what they said, right? But how did it impact the customer? Did it impact them where they're starting to have a better experience during the call? Empathy is the number one example I give this. Instead of just saying, I'm really sorry to hear that, we can prompt and say, hey, look through the entire call, right? Beginning to end, right? That's the other thing with empathy. Maybe we gave empathy at one point. We said this one phrase, during the beginning of a call, but, this customer had 5 different issues, right? So how do we measure that? Well, we can say, hey, look through the call, find all the times where a customer had a pain point, and then did we respond, or did the agent respond in kind that raised that tone, raised or lowered sentiment, kind of just depending on how you're scoring that stuff. And again, looking at intent, looking at outcomes, instead of just looking at behaviors of being said, looking at script adherence, you're looking at these compliance issues, right? So for my kind of best form, right? Contact center quality form, we kind of tell customers, look at this, right? Let's talk about agent behaviors, right? Call control. Let's look at empathy. You got to have greetings, and maybe your greeting is scripted. That's fine, right? We look at kind of those type of things. We have to have compliance things, right? Did they say the disclosure? Does that have to be verbatim? Do they get a little bit of leeway, right? I think that's the other cool thing here too is with a lot of these tools now, right? You don't just have to score black and white. You can score to cultural issues that you talk with the agent. Meaning, if you have a disclosure, yeah, some of that times it's got to be black and white, right? They have to read the verbatim, every single, I has to be dotted, T has to be crossed, as they're talking. But a lot of times there's leeway, right? Hey, we kind of give the agent the benefit of the doubt there, right? You can build that into kind of the intelligence of this, which is much more difficult to do in a manual scoring kind of episode, right? So I think that there's a lot going on from a technology standpoint that we can look much deeper into agent behaviors than just what is being said, right? We can start to look for patterns, right? We are not just going to score 3 calls per agent per week. With technology now, we can score hundreds of calls per agent per week. We can start to not just hammer them or nitpick on that 1 or 2 calls, but start to look at overall patterns, right? Over the last 50 calls, Timmy, I noticed that, you hesitate, right? Because we're asking really cool questions now. You're hesitating before you pitch that upsell, right? Let's work on building confidence with that. We can pick that stuff up at scale now using AI, which you would never be able to do with an Excel spreadsheet kind of marking things down, right? I think, again, leading to things to actual improvement, having really 2-way conversations now over these things, right? Most of the time, the agent will tell you what they're struggling with, right? When you kind of look at the overall, when you tell them what they're struggling with, sometimes they get defensive. And we make mistakes when we just look at small minority pieces of calls in 1 or 2 or 3 different calls, right? That might not tell the picture of where this agent is actually struggling, right? And I think, talking to agents, having an overall kind of plan for them is a really important deal when you can, again, not just say, hey, you're screwing up this one question, but kind of give them an overall package of where they're struggling and how you can help them. Right. I think, with AI, we can look at tonal issues. We can look at sentiment from a whole different level. We can score sentiment, right? We can see at the beginning of the call, did the agent or did the customer have a lower sentiment, but we raised their sentiment to a higher level because of the things that we did. All of these things can be now, quote unquote, scored on your QA, using AI. And I think, looking at not just the agent behaviors that are, getting back to kind of this compliance thing, but these agent behaviors we can now look at scale. And the other thing is looking at scary stuff, and scary stuff meaning a compliance issue, right? Where before you're pulling a needle in a haystack to see if an agent is doing something wrong, and maybe boom, you give them an auto fail, right? Well, now we can take your entire contact center. We can take an entire team. We can take a large swath of customer calls from an agent, and we can flag certain behaviors, right? To understand, hey, this is a bad deal. We could get in trouble with this. You guys have to make sure that you're reading this disclosure, right? That we're getting a yes instead of a yeah on the call. All of those things kind of come into play. And again, the compliance issues are the easy part, but we can get much deeper into the insights of them, right? But also, again, focus more on these agent behaviors. And, I think looking at auto fails is something that we had to do because we didn't have patterns, right? We didn't have, a large swath of calls. And again, auto fails are still going to be there. But, again, if you have 100 calls from an agent, they auto fail one, right? Because they didn't say something. That's a whole different deal than if, you only scored 3 of them and they auto failed one of them. You think you have a disaster. And it could be kind of the other way around too. But I think, again, looking at trends, and auto QA platforms can pick these things up extremely quickly that you would never be able to kind of really pick up, with that human. A lot of times I also see that, most or a lot of contact centers, they schedule meetings with agents, maybe once a week to kind of do an agent analysis. And we do that here at Expivia, right? But I think micro coaching and coaching kind of as things are happening is much better, right? Again, you can get now 50 calls in like 2 seconds scored. And then out of those 50 calls, like what we give with auto QAs, you can get a snapshot. Here's the 5 agent behaviors or the 5 behaviors that this agent is struggling with or they're not doing, right? Whether it's a compliance, whether it's empathy, whether it's call control, right? And to be able to have that snapshot really at all times. And again, you're not overloading the agent, but I think you can have daily meetings with these guys where you're talking through these issues that they know they probably have too. Those small kind of digestible segments where you're continuing to work on. And it's cool to have this information, right? Because then you have something to kind of score off of, or you can give goals to kind of get to different levels where before, again, we were just checking things. We're hoping for good compliance things. And then if we had a good agent experience or customer experience, I think, we were kind of that was the thumbs up. So, again, I think coaching, it really is not just about catching mistakes. I think that's the biggest thing. It's about trying to make the agents better every day. And it's also making sure that we're hitting all of our compliance issues as well, right? So we need to start to turn, not just QA being a policing tool, but a real development tool, right? I see so many times that the feedback that we're given, and again, this is where kind of I think auto QA platforms can help too, because they help the coach, right? You can't just go up to an agent and be like, hey, you need to be more empathetic. Like, what does that mean? Like, how do you do that? Right? Hey, you got to make sure that you're controlling the call, right? Being really specific with these things, again, is I think another thing that these tools can kind of help us with, right? If we're a new supervisor, if we're struggling to kind of get these insights into calls and then kind of be able to turn them into behaviors that a coach can help with, and that the agent hopefully gets a little bit of improvement with. Real quick, I think some of the really cool stuff that I'm starting to see, some of the stuff that we're working on as well is to make this thing full circle, right? So right now we're getting all of these insights. We're trying to give snapshots of agent behaviors, at scale, right? So to take 50 calls or 100 calls, but break it down into, 4 or 5 or 6 things that the agent could do better, but we're starting to see AI tools like, we are in the final stages of our Redo technology. We're calling it Redo.ai, where, We have found you can have a transcript, have an agent who had a rough call, say they had a 50%, right? They bombed the call, was a fail. We can take away everything that the agent had, but leave the customer information, the same customer name, their tone, all the questions that they have, send it to AI, use an AI voice, and then have that agent, right, after they've been coached, actually take that call again, right? And use the AI avatar of the customer that they just bombed to have that interaction again. And maybe they didn't show empathy. Maybe they forgot to cross-sell or upsell. Maybe they didn't control the call. Well, now they can take those things that we just talked through, right? Those insights that we gave, had a little bit of coaching, and then boom, we can really kind of look to take that call again. Again, you're also going to start to see, and I think this is good. We're working on it too, is just having a kind of an AI supervisor, right? That is going to be able to look at an evaluation, see the things that the customer or the agent did. And then if the agent has any questions like, why was I scored like this? Or how can I improve? That kind of the AI supervisor will be able to take that information, understand the rubric, understand everything with the program, and be able to give some real insights into the agent as well. I'm not totally there yet with the full coaching aspect. We're playing around with it from an R&D standpoint. I still think that that's a human behavior. But you're going to start to see that as kind of even 2025 kind of rolls around. So again, this is the low hanging fruit. This is the cheapest, most inexpensive way to get into the AI game for your contact center. This is instant ROI if you're choosing the right platform. And more importantly, this is instant improvement with your agents when you're using this tool correctly. I think, again, just kind of checking the notes, the concept of AI to pull more data points. Yeah. I mean, that's the biggest thing, right? Looking at agent behaviors, looking at their kind of their overall behaviors at scale, right? To be able to say, hey, here's the 6 things over these last 200 calls that really you've been struggling with. And if we can fix these 6 things, right, we're going to be in a really good spot. And not only can you see that with the individual agent, but you can see that at your contact center at scale, right? To be able to see now, like with Auto QA on your dashboard, you can see, hey, 17% of the agents, or I should say calls, 70% of the calls didn't use the proper greeting, didn't show empathy, didn't use this rebuttal, right? And again, we get back into how the form is set up, right? Is that kind of checkboxy? Is that making sure that we're not using this just as a policing form? But still, those are behaviors that still have to happen, right? You have to have a good greeting. You have to maybe use the customer's name. Protocols for compliance when you're verifying a customer, right? That stuff's important. That really doesn't go away. And we want to make sure that, we can see all that, right? So compliance is still really important. But I mean, just the human issues of behaviors that an agent should be able to give, because again, there's going to be AI that's going to be taking a lot of this stuff. And we have to start to instill different types of behaviors than just checkbox of saying certain phrases to our customers, right? When it gets to that point where we need that human being, right? And again, check us out. Again, I would hope you go look at, if you're looking at Auto QA, go check everybody out. Check us out to Auto QA, OTTOQA.com. We put a lot of time into this. And again, this is a tool that we built for us, for our BPO, realized it works. So we're not a software company. This is built by contact center people for contact center people. So again, everything that we're doing here, from the no seat licenses and the usage model, I think hopefully can have a real benefit and have instant ROI and also instant improvement into your contact center. So again, thank you guys very much. Hopefully there's a little bit of value here, and this gets you to think of look at your form. If you go to the autoqa.com website, we have a couple sample forms that we think are the best. We have a couple blog posts on this as well on, what should you look for when you're kind of looking at the 2025 QA form, right? From a sales aspect, from a service aspect to, even looking at things that maybe should be self-service, right? We still have a lot of customers that have, password resets or very basic things that kind of come in. How do you score those kind of things? We kind of talk through some of that stuff too. So again, thank you guys very much. Hopefully this had some value. If there's any more questions, I can take them, but if not, I will talk to everybody next week. Thanks, guys.